I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. Yeah, I know I really never came back, but when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. I'm still retired. You only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream of hosting my own show so I can get into basketball games for free. I wouldn't change a thing. Welcome to episode 6 of The Joe Show, and a big thank you to all the fans who are keeping this thing on air. Let's get you all caught up now with highlights from this past week's biggest games as we toss it over to Brian Skowronski.
All right, thank you, Coach B. Plenty to get to from the last week that was. Lots of big conference games, so some of the races within the leagues starting to shake things out amongst the top of the cream of the crop. Others have already emerged and won some conference championships, as we'll show you right now as we spin it back in the Weekly Rewind. Let's tip things off with the city game. Madison hosting the Lady Tigers on senior night, and Manetta Hillary looking to spoil the festivities. She had 12 points in the first half alone. Chloe Ebling and the Lady Rams kept it competitive, though, trailing by just 4 heading into halftime at 20-16. This is the final seconds now, and Ebling knocks down a huge triple, just 1.6 seconds remaining. But they cannot foul Hillary in time as the Lady Tigers going to walk out of Madison Junior High with a huge 39-38 victory. They are on top of the OCC, tied with West Holmes. Fredericktown at Northmore, and the Freddies looking to lock up the KMAC Championship. Northmore, though, they had something to say about it. Caleb Chenier giving the Golden Knights the lead early on there, but with time running out in the half, how about Luke Bean hitting the deep three just before the buzzer? Freddies led it 23-20 at the break. Second half, and the Golden Knights still sticking around, though. Chenier tying things up with that hoop. They then took a 1-point lead, but Ben Mass with the biggest shot of the night coming up right there as Fredericktown would take the lead and never give it back. They win the KMAC Championship. 52-44, they knock off Northmore on the road inside of the castle to clinch an outright league championship. Upper Sandusky at Buckeye Central, and it was senior night in New Washington as senior Kennedy Deppen going to go up and around Walton for the crafty bucket to get things started. Fast forward to just 2 seconds left in the first half, and Cadence Isles tying things up from deep. It was 16-all at the break. Stowers and the Lady Rams gave it all they had in the second half, matching Buckeye shot for shot. But the reigning, defending N10 champs, they would dig deep and edge out a 42-37 victory to clinch at least a share of this year's conference crown yet again. Loudonville at Lucas coming up here in girls action, and Corey Vermillion and the Redbirds wasted no time getting to work as she would knock down the opening triple of the contest. Shelby Grover, she was pretty much the offense for Lucas in the first half. She had 12 of her team's 14 points in the first 2 quarters, but despite another solid afternoon from Grover, Loudonville's high-scoring, fast-paced offense was just too much for the Lady Cubs to handle, as Vermilion's 30 points would help lead the Lady Birds over Lucas 62-28. Dominating victory for them. They are 5-0 in the outright MVC champs. Mount Gilead given new life in the conference after Cardington's loss to East Knox, and they would take advantage of it. Lydia Stallnaker scores from the baseline here for the Lady Indians to go up big early. The Freddies trying to cut into the deficit before the break, though. That's Callie Carpenter getting the steal and the bucket, plus a foul. 28-15 they trailed at the break, and that's as close as they would get. Mount Gilead would get the steal here, and that's Madeline Elson with the easy finish at the other end. She would have a game-high 18 points in this contest as the Lady Indians win running away 55-32. They are still a game behind Cardington in the KMAC standings, but things starting to tighten up as the league race is starting to come to a close. Key game in the N10 title race here for Colonel Crawford, who was turning over the ball early at carry, and the Blue Devils taking advantage. That's Carter Smiley with the transition bucket. Later on in the first, here he is off the down screen, gets an open triple, and he's going to knock that down as well. Devils led 14-7 after one. Braxton Baker, though, fighting to keep the Eagles in the picture. Tough layup here. Later on in the second half, Trevor Vogt going to go to work one-on-one down in the paint. Crawford would pull within 38-34 early in the fourth, but Braden Young so clutch in this one from the free throw stripe. He drained 7 of 8 in the closing minutes to help seal up the victory. And check this out. Wow, kapow, looking like a volleyball player, Austin Niederkor, with the big swat and an exclamation point as the Devils win it 47-38. They are all alone atop the N10 standings. They control their own destiny. District seeding was up for grabs for the KMAC champs against Elgin, and they would start red hot, hitting 8 of 10 shots in the opening quarter, including this Cade Carpenter triple. But the Comets, they were able to stick around and cut the lead down to 7 by the half. Fredericktown, though, they would pull away for good in the third as Tegan Roll gets the putback to drop in right there. Later on in the fourth, Ben Mast going around 2 defenders all the way to the cup, and the Freddies would roll 67-51. Next up for them, it's the Freddyburg on Friday. They got a chance at a perfect conference record with the win. Last night as well, Upper Sandusky hosting Shelby in a non-conference clash, and Audie Albert cooking early. 12 of her 22 points came in the first quarter alone. A scoring outburst from Grace Walton would give the Rams their first lead, though, heading into the half at 24-23. So we got a good one going, but sophomore Leah Kinley, who played a pivotal role on offense for Upper, she would surpass her nightly average. It's not enough, though, as Shelby would knock off the Lady Rams 56-51, taking a big-time road victory. So that's all that you need to see from the last week that was here on the OH Report. But guess what? Still plenty more. Joe's show is on the way, so stick around. We'll be back with more Baylog right after this.
Back here on the Joe Show, it's time to reveal the winner of the KMAC Athlete of the Month for December. And who better to present that honor than KMAC-Trav himself, Travis Berardi.
Coach, I got a question for you. Do you bowl?
I have not bowled in a long time, but I bowled recreationally in years past.
Well, the December winners are 2 bowlers, and they are Jordan Hall and Olivia Nastasi, both from the East Knox Bulldogs. Jordan Hall, 156.8 average bowling. He also has a 4.0 GPA, and he is the team leader. And Olivia, a 175.4 average. I know I have never probably reached that number, and I don't know if you have either, but congratulations.
I would say probably not. My goal is to see if I can get 1 turkey.
But congratulations to Jordan and Olivia, our KMAC Athletes of the Month for December. And it's cool that we get to do this, Coach, because now, you know for now that we are the KMAC exclusive partner with the conference, so we get to do cool things like this. So congratulations to 2 Bulldogs. And just a reminder, coming up in about 9 days, we will be providing the KMAC Bowling Championships right here, live and free on the OH Report. But moving on back to basketball, it's time to get into another edition of the Tournament Update. All right, Coach, I have 4 brackets to show you. You know, the tournament draw was on Sunday, what I like to call Selection Sunday Part 1. We'll have Part 2 for the boys coming up this weekend. But some intriguing matchups, so let's get right into it and start with a local district, the Division II Ashland District. As we pull it up, there are some really intriguing matchups in the sectional semi, Coach. We'll look at the bottom of the bracket. Shelby playing Lexington. It seems like no matter what the seeds are for these two teams. Lexington always gives Shelby fits in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been, you know, the part that plays in that, it's kind of a rivalry game too. I mean, I know Ontario-Lex is a big rivalry, but that distance of being close, Shelby-Lex has always kind of been a rivalry. So, you know, those are the kind of matchups, if you're Shelby, you're kind of concerned with, because, you know, you've beaten them during the year, and sometimes when you beat the team during the year, you got to convince your players that, you know, there's going to be different things going to happen in the tournament. So that's a neat matchup as far as, you know, a sectional opener.
And then right below that, the city game, part 3, Mansfield Senior and Madison. You just saw on the run back with Brian that Madison nearly pulled off the victory over the Lady Tigers. Well, they'll get another chance at Pete Henry Gymnasium, where they take on the 3rd-seeded Lady Tigers of Mansfield. The winner gets the top seed Norwalk.
And I think the thing that's one of the things that's neat about the tournament. You know, sometimes in the tournament, you know, you as a coach, maybe your team hasn't played to where you think they should play. But that tournament gives you a chance if you get even just one win. Like in the case of Madison, a win over Senior High, that'd be a feather in their cap if that's the only game that they win in the tournament. So that's what makes us exciting, because it's one and you're done.
Yeah. Top of the bracket also, it seemed like the top seeds wanted to avoid Bellevue, who was the 2 seed. They play Vermilion in the first round, and they would then get your Ontario Lady Warriors in a sectional final, I should say. The winner would get Sandusky, Perkins, or Clyde. But despite being a 2 seed, Bellevue's the team that people were avoiding.
Yeah, that's what, as I took a look at this bracket, I guess that's what interested me, is that Norwalk was the 1. But here's the thing you need to remember, with how it was done this year, coaches didn't vote on those seeds. It was done by Martin RPI. So what this is kind of telling you is that both Shelby and Mansfield Senior feel like their way to get to the district tournament is going through Norwalk rather than going through Bellevue. But, you know, Bellevue, they chose to play. Ontario had a really big win against Marion Pleasant the other night. So again, you get to this tournament, it's, you know, you can predict it, but there's always going to be some upsets. So Ontario looked probably the best thing. Hey, we got a chance to play for a sectional championship. We win that, you know, that puts really a feather in our cap for the season.
All right, that's it for the Division II Ashland District. Let's move on to Division III in the Northwest District. That will be the Shelby District with the number 1 seed Margaretta, number 2 Upper Sandusky, 3 Colonel Crawford, 4 the Clear Fork Lady Colts. Margaretta, once again, one of those teams that, despite being the top seed, they want to take a sectional semifinal matchup. And as we take a look at the bracket, they're going to go on against a Galleon squad, the number 12 seed, the lowest seed there. The winner gets Crestview. So Margaretta, another one of those teams that teams are trying to avoid. However, Colonel Crawford is the 3. They could have taken a route to go against Upper Sandusky in a district semifinal, but no, they're going to try and get a 3rd matchup with Margaretta for the 3rd consecutive season in a district semifinal.
And some of the thinking with that would be from the standpoint that Upper Sandusky and Colonel Crawford have played twice already in the year. And many times you don't want to play a team a 3rd time. So, you know, Coach Bauer probably had a long discussion, you know, with his staff, you know, maybe even talk to his players, because we've done that some years too. If, you know, if we get a chance to go here, where would we want to go? And he chose that, you know, their route would be to go through Margaretta rather than trying to go through Upper Sandusky a 3rd time.
And speaking of the Lady Rams, they put up a tough fight at home against Shelby just last night in a tournament warm-up for them. They're the 2 seed. They get the winner of Willard and Bucyrus. Willard, Cy Savonsack, one of the best point guards in the area. So that could be an interesting matchup between her and Cadence Isles. And then on the bottom part of that top bracket, these are games that are going to be at Buckeye Central, by the way. Clear Fork, the 4 seed, Coach Sellers, deciding to take that sectional semi. They'll take on Edison, with the winner taking on Huron. 2 interesting matchups. But are you the coach that liked to play that sectional semifinal, or did you like to take the bye?
Sometimes it just depended on how your schedule, the end of your season schedule was. So, you know, like if we would end with maybe just a single game, like on a Friday, we would look to maybe play on that Tuesday. If we ended maybe like that, we played, let's say the week before we played Friday, Saturday, and you played a Tuesday and a Friday, you're probably thinking, well, if we get a chance, let's just play, let's get a full week, like a normal week, rest, and go into that sectional final. So sometimes it just depended on your schedule, and sometimes it depended on your team. I think the other part of it is I got to be more of a veteran coach. A lot of times I would sit down and talk with like our senior captains and try to get a feel for what the team felt that they wanted to do, and let them have a little bit of say in it also. So, you know, it kind of changes. I mean, some coaches have the philosophy, they can get the bye, they'll take it. Some coaches, they want to play right away. You know, usually if you're winning, that's the best way to go.
Keep it rolling. So there you have it for the Division III Shelby District. Those district semifinal championship games will be at Shelby High School. Staying in Division III and going down a little bit south, the KMAC country just had our athletes of the month. So we have to mention some of these KMAC teams and a couple interesting matches. First of all, Fredericktown, they've been decimated with injuries. A few starters have been out for at least part of the season or for the whole season with injuries. They got to take on the defending regional champion in Worthington Christian, so that's a tough draw for them, being a 24 seed, but just so many injuries didn't get them enough wins to get above, you know, the seeding line to where they could pick something. But down at the bottom of the bracket, that's where it gets interesting. East Knox gets an 18 seed, but they're one of the more up-and-coming teams right now, especially in the conference. They knocked off Northmore. They also knocked off, I believe, Mount Gilead as well. Or not Mount Gilead, they played that game just earlier tonight. So they knocked off some good teams. They're peaking at the right time. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can compete with 6-seeded Harvest Prep. But the game I want to look at, Northmore and Cardington. The first game at Northmore, Golden Knights fell to Cardington by 2. The second game at Cardington was the lowest scoring girls high school basketball game I've ever seen, 23-19. So, you know, Coach going right back at Cardington with the Golden Knights. That should be an intriguing matchup on Valentine's night.
And what's kind of intriguing about that, if you take a look at that matchup, that's one of the few matchups that teams have played each other. A lot of these other matchups,
especially in the Central District, yeah.
Central District, those teams have not seen each other. So sometimes that can be good because, you know, a top seed may take, you know, if you're a 3 or a 4 seed and you're playing, you know, a 12 or 15 seed, they may take you lightly, and if they don't know you, there could be some trouble there. So that's a little bit, this becomes a little bit more interesting than the 2 brackets that we looked at previously, because there's not necessarily a lot of familiarity except in the one game that you mentioned, Northmore and Cardington.
We'll see if Cardington, 3's the charm, they can get 3 in a row, or if the Lady Knights can finally get that victory over Cardington that they haven't had in quite some time. All right, to our final bracket, and it is the Division IV Willard District with the reigning defending regional champion Buckeye Central Buckettes. They are the #1 overall seed down at the bottom of the bracket, and they will face either the winner of Crestline or St. Paul's. Again, one of those cases where 2 of the top 3 bottom seeds, just one of the last places you get to go. Looking up at the top, Danbury, not a team I know too much about, but they've had a great season. They were actually a couple of times, they were close to surpassing Buckeye Central in the Martin RPI, but just off. They'll be at the top of the bracket taking on either Monroeville or Sandusky St. Mary's. But the games I want to look at are right below Danbury. Mansfield Christian Seneca East and a New London St. Peters. Coach, New London, a team that it's kind of gone under the radar in the Firelands Conference this season. A very good win total, and they get the #3 seed. And it's looking like maybe a matchup with Mansfield Christian. That's an intriguing matchup, at least to me.
Yes, that is an intriguing matchup. I think the other part that's interesting with this, if you take a look at those teams, you have several teams that are out of the Northern 10. And the Northern 10 has been a really balanced conference in girls. You've seen over the past couple of weeks, you've seen some of the teams that are in the lower half knock off teams that are at the top. I mean, like Winford has a win over Buckeye Central earlier, I think, at the beginning of the year. They just beat Colonel Crawford. So some of these matchups are intriguing from that standpoint. Is you got to take a look at, you know, who have you played, and some of those 7 and 8 teams, their schedule might have been a lot tougher than some of the teams that they're playing.
Yeah, so you never know. You might even see a 9-4 upset with Seneca East over Mansfield Christian just because of the body of work throughout the regular season, and then maybe New London as well. So even Seneca East, maybe we see them sneak into a district semifinal. We'll just have to find out. Another bracket that I like to see is above Buckeye Central. Lucas Plymouth Shelby Grover's finally back with the team. She's given them a bit of a spark. They knocked off Mansfield Christian already this season. Take on Plymouth and then a matchup with South Central. And I think that's a favorable matchup for Coach Grover to put Lucas in that situation where maybe if they play 2 really good games, they could find themselves in a district semi.
Yeah, and anytime you're able to add a 1,000-point score, and she comes out, I think in her first 3 games she had 20, at least 20, that's a big boost to your team. And you know, as we've always said, you know, you can have a great regular season, and teams remember that, but most teams are remembered for what they do in the tournament. So Lucas might be one of those teams that's going to make that run that everybody's, you know, that everybody gets a little surprised about.
And then for Buckeye Central, I mean, they're far and beyond the favorite in this district, but this is why we can play the games. You never know. They could have an off night like they did against Winford earlier this season and maybe not even get out of their district. So you know Coach Capel's going to have them ready once again to get through there. But
well, and I think with Buckeye Central, there's 2 things. One, I think where they've been, they understand the targets on their back. But the good part of it, they've been through this. I mean, they've been through it. So those kids kind of know, you know, kind of what it takes, and I'm sure Coach Capel's going to remind them of that as they begin tournament play.
Getting a lot of players returning from last year's state Final Four run. But that'll be it for our bracket breakdown. The tournament update number 2 for me per se, but I'll be back next week. We'll discuss 4 more brackets on the boys' side. But thanks for having me once again, Coach.
It's always great.
We're going to head to break right now, and when we come back, more Joe shows. We get ready for story time and much more.
You know you gotta climb higher, climb higher, let the fire burn brighter, be stronger, go longer, climb higher, climb
The Mansfield Senior Tigers are enjoying a resurgence this season, with an outside chance of capturing the program's first OCC championship since 2019. Leading the pack over the second half of the season has been an emerging junior star, Lala Owens, better known as Lala in Tiger Country. I took a trip around the arena with the 6'5" forward this week. Here's a look at our conversation. Hi, we're here with Lala Owens, Mansfield senior, you know, averaging just double figures and averaging about 7 rebounds a game, but banged up a little bit. Wasn't able to practice today, but we're going to go around the arena with him. So the first thing, Elias, I call you Elias, but everybody calls you Lala. How did it become Lala?
It's a childhood nickname my parents called me, so then everybody else just started following after. Yes. Yeah.
So the next question I got is, I know you guys had a tough game Friday night at Lex and didn't get a chance to watch it, but I heard that your shoulder popped out.
Yeah, popped out of place.
Popped it back in, and you came in and made a 3. Can you kind of explain how that happened?
For real, everybody was telling me not to come back in because of football, but I decided to play.
Shows a little bit about your toughness that you have and the mental toughness you have. You're a junior on the squad. You only have 1 senior. Last year you played some significant minutes as a sophomore. How is the Lala Owens of this year as a junior different from the Lala Owens as a sophomore last year?
Having a bigger role.
Okay. So a lot of us have influences as far as somebody that influences you as far as in your athletic career. Who's been the biggest influence in your athletic career?
Probably my brother, for real. Him going to JUCO really like taught me to get my grades up, and yeah, I know I didn't want to go to a JUCO, so now that I'm actually focusing on school, it's helping me get to D1s.
Favorite professional athlete?
Probably Stephen Curry. I'll have to go with Curry.
So if I went out to a restaurant, what would be the favorite food you'd order?
A bacon cheeseburger.
Bacon cheeseburger, keeping it basic.
Yeah.
You know, the OCC is a really tough league. You guys play a great non-league schedule.
All right.
And you've had an opportunity to play 2 years of varsity here. What's the toughest gym that you've played in so far?
This year or just overall?
Overall, the last 2 years, or even this year.
Spot going to have to be Lexington, for real. I feel like that was one of my biggest games I probably played.
Yeah. I think that was a full house on Friday night.
Yeah, it was real packed.
Best memory you've had in your athletic career so far?
I'm sorry?
Best memory that you've had in your athletic career so far?
Probably getting my first dunk.
Who was that against?
That was against... Whew, that was a minute ago.
A lot of players like to kind of get motivated before a game. What's your favorite song or artist that you're going to listen to get yourself pumped up?
I like Lil Baby. Yeah, I'd be chilling, laying down sometimes.
So important part of a team is your teammates. Of all your teammates, what guy could make you laugh if you needed a good laugh?
Probably my cousin, Jayante. You know, he always messing around, goofing around, so yeah.
You know, I know football is an important part of your athletic career too. So the Super Bowl's been just, you know, as the two teams are there, Chiefs and Eagles. Who do you got?
I'm about to go with the Chiefs.
Chiefs?
Even though Tyreek left, I'm gonna start to go with the Chiefs.
And so you know now it's illegal to bet in Ohio. So
right.
So what's going to be the score?
I feel like it's gonna be kind of low. I'm gonna say 21-28.
All right, so there we got it, sports bettors, 21-28 or 28-21, the Chiefs, right? All right. Around the arena with Lala Owens. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Owens has been putting up some healthy numbers during the month of January to help senior high get to 10 wins for the first time in 3 seasons. But has he done enough to make this week's area stat leaders? Let's throw it over to Hayden Gray with more.
Well, thank you, Coach Baylog. Always a treat checking out the Around the Arena segment, seeing what some of our area's best athletes are up to. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to see the numbers they're putting up on the court here in our area stat leaders segment. We're going to start off with the boys' side of things today. And as usual, we'll begin in the category of rebounding. Checking in at number 5 is Baden Forup out of Lexington, just shy of 9 boards per game for him. He's one of those kids you don't want to be matched up against in the paint because he is always crashing the rebounds. At number 4, Alex Brushcotter out of Shelby, another high flyer, an athlete all around, goes and gets those rebounds, 9.2 a night for him. At number 3 is Carson Myers, 10.6 rebounds per game for him out of River Valley. They're also at the top in that MOAC competition right now between Shelby and Harding. At number 2, Jacob Maddie, 10.6 for the Eagle out of Colonel Crawford. And at number 1, Sam McMillan, just shy of 12 rebounds a night for the Royal out of Winford. Changing over to the scoring leaders at number 5, AJ Hess, 20.2 points per night. As mentioned, he is the all-time leading scorer now at the Mohawk Boys program, and they are competing for a Northern 10 title. At number 4, Carson Myers, 21.2 points a night. River Valley also in the mix for that MOAC title. Like I mentioned, against Shelby and Harding, that'll come down to the wire over the next week and a half. At number 3, Cooper Kent, 21.3 points a night for the shooter out of Galleon. At number 2, Alex Brushcotter, 21.5 a night for the Whippet. But number 1 this week, the first time he's topped the list, Matt Bland, 21.8 points a night out of Mount Gilead, representing the KMAC. Great season that he has had so far. Great numbers from Matt. Finally, our assist leaders for the boys, Grayson Reynolds leads off the list at number 5, 4.5 for the Trojan out of Centerburg. At number 4, Alex Brushcotter making his presence felt on all 3 lists yet again, just shy of 5 assists per night. Then we have a tie, Chase Ebert and Kanan Allen from River Valley and Winford respectively, both at 5.3 assists per game. But your leader this week climbing up to number 1, Jax Wenger at 5.8 assists per night from Northmore. Let's spotlight Jax real quick, because while he can dish the rock, he can also score really well too. A really good athlete for Blade Tackett's squad this year. Jax Wenger, your assist leader. Now we'll switch over to the girls' stat leaders, beginning with our rebound category. At number 5, Katie Wagner, 9.5 a night for the Lady Royal out of Winford. At number 4, Ava Brown, 9.54 rebounds per game for her out of Lady Lex. At number 3, Emily Klopp, 9.6 rebounds a night for the Lady Warrior of Mohawk. At number 2, Haley Snyder, 10 rebounds even for the Lady Viking of River Valley, who is also in contention still mathematically for the MOAC title. And at number 1, Corey Vermilia, 13.1 rebounds a night for the Lady Redbird. We'll switch to scoring. At number 5, Kate Cecil comes in first here on our list at 14.3 points a night for the Lady Buckette out of Buckeye Central, who looks to lock down the N10 title outright with their few remaining conference games this week. At number 4, Callie Carpenter, 15.1 points a night for Fredericktown, the sole KMAC representative on the list. At number 3, Brooklyn Mosier, 17 points a night for the Lady Viking of River Valley. At number 2, Shelby Grover, 24 points a night. Got to see her play the other day against Loudonville. Not much else to say other than she's one of the most talented athletes here in our area. And at number 1, Corey Vermilia, 30.5 points a night for the Loudonville Lady Redbirds. Let's spotlight Corey. Recently named one of the top small school girls athletes in the country last week. Corey knows how to get it done offensively, has one of the smoothest shots that I've seen, just a great ball player and only a junior. Great things ahead for Corey, not just this year, but next year. Now we'll switch over to our final category, our assist leaders. At number 5 and 4, a pair of Upper Sandusky Lady Rams, Grace Walton and Leah Kinley at 3.5 and 3.6 assists per night. At number 3, Kylie Hess, 3.7 assists per game out of Danville. At number 2, Riley Concert, 4 even assists per night for the Buckette out of Buckeye Central. And at number 1, still holding on with a few more regular season games left, Demi Hip out of Shelby, 5.1 assists per night. You just saw her play last night against Upper Sandusky, and you'll see her this Friday taking on Clear Fork on the road in a game you can catch live and free. But that'll do it for this week's Area Stat Leaders update. As always, coaches, athletic directors, parents, if you know an athlete that should be on this list that you don't see this week that would be in our top 5, just make sure you get those stats sent over to the email that you see on your screen by Tuesday, Wednesday at noon at the latest, and I'll make sure they get the spot they deserve here on our list. Don't go anywhere though. More of the Joe Show coming up live and free right after this commercial break.
course of my 35-year coaching career, I had the opportunity to compete in a lot of great venues all around the Buckeye State. But there's definitely a few that stand out as a cut above the rest, as I will detail in this week's edition of Coach B's Ballers. Ontario High School. This of course has to be one of my favorite places, as I coached over half of my games in my coaching career there. As I started out my coaching career at Ontario, we played in what is now the junior high gym. And during the 1990s, this facility was one of the best home court advantages in this area. Most games were sold out, and to get a seat, you needed to be there at least a half hour before the start of our JV game. With the school swimming pool being right next door and a packed house for the gym, this usually meant a lot of sweat for both players, coaches, and fans. Add to this, we had a great pep band that was in a small area right up above the basket. And I can remember one thing, we had a band director named Dave Lyerly, who was one of the best band directors ever, and we had one of the best pep bands ever. But When we had Mike Green, a local TV broadcaster who would come to cover our games, Mike would always wait till the band stopped playing to start his pregame speeches. And Dave was always a guy that kept an eye on Mike, and as soon as Mike would start the pregame talk, he just cranked the band up. And that band was louder than any band that you could ever hear. So the one thing I said during the 90s that, you know, Ontario basketball at home on a Friday or Saturday night wasn't just a game, it became an event. So I can't go without saying, though, you know, we moved into a new facility, I believe it was in 2001, and I can't go without mentioning probably one of the greatest games that we've ever played at home was played in that facility, which was known as the O-Arena. And that game occurred on January 29th of 2014 when we matched up with Coach Steve Gray's Norwalk Truckers. The Truckers had won 57 regular season games in a row, and we knocked them off 63-61 in a game that was just packed. I just remember the next day one of my players, Tyler Boatwright, stopped in my classroom and sat down in my office. And I kind of went in and I said, "Hey, Tyler, what's up?" And he just looked at me and he goes, "Coach, that game was the most fun I've ever had in my life." That's what high school basketball is about, especially in this area. However, I must also mention that the Truckers did beat us in the last game of the season at their place and went on to win that 2014 state championship, but will always be that one blemish on the record. A second place that kind of holds a special place in my heart is Ashland Cates Gymnasium. For many years, this was the site of both the Division II and the Division III district championships. And before the renovation of the gym, I think the capacity was like 3,300 spectators. I can remember many years when we would arrive at that gym an hour to an hour and a half before a game, and there would be just lines of people all around the facility waiting to get in. One of the most memorable games that we ever played there was on March 10th of 1995 when we matched up with Clear Fork in the district finals. We had beaten the Colts 66-64 to open that season, and now we were matched up in the district finals. So Clear Fork came in with a record of 19-3, and we were 18-4. We trailed by 3 points with 17 seconds to go in the game, and a sharpshooter that we had named Ben Shoemaker hit a three with 7 seconds to go to get the game into overtime. Both teams battled it out through one overtime, and then finally in the second overtime we were able to overtake them. The memory of this game is, of course, it was a district championship, but that game took us to the regionals at Toledo where we beat Coldwater and Delta to get to the Final Four in 1995. And not only did we play great games there at Ashland, but I had the pleasure of watching probably one of the best high school games that I've ever seen. And in talking to my oldest son, Steven, the other night, he reminded me of going to this game. And it was in 2006 when Willard matched up with Upper Sandusky in the district final. Willard had a kid named Jimmy Langhurst. Willard was coached by a good friend, Greg Nosselman. Upper Sandusky had a guy named John Diebler. He was coached by his dad, Keith Diebler. The game ended 101-98. John Diebler had 55, and Jimmy Langhurst had 55. Probably one of the best high school games that I've ever seen. Another venue that kind of holds a special place in my heart is Willard's Gymnasium, of course named after legendary coach Bob Haas. And when I started coaching in Ontario, typically our sectional tournament was held at Galleon High School, and your goal, of course, was to win a sectional, and then the Division III district tournament was held at Willard High School. So our goal was to win a sectional and then get to that district tournament. And in 1989, Ontario won its first sectional championship in probably 10 plus years. So we had the opportunity to advance to the district tournament play at Willard High School. And we matched up with a Huron team that was loaded with a 6'8" guy named Jim Springer who played at Division I University of Richmond. They also had another player, I believe his last name was Faflick, that went on to play Division II basketball. And then they had a young freshman named Gus Johnson who eventually ended up and played at Ohio University. We did a good job on the first two guys, but Gus Johnson, I think, lit us up for 30 in that game. And And I bring that story up because the following year, we got to play them again in the district semifinals. We beat Huron, and then we beat Colonel Crawford and got to advance to the regional. And that was our first, or at least my first district championship in my coaching career. So that holds a special place. Over the years, though, we also played Willard in some big non-league games with going against players like Nick Dials and Jimmy Langhurst. And, of course, I can't go without bringing this up, that one of the most special wins we probably had, especially late in my career, was we upset Lexington in the district finals in the sectional finals in 2019, a year after Lex had made it to the Final Four in Division II. So Willard's always a special place to play. Winford's W.W. Donworth Gymnasium, which is currently now their old gymnasium. I can't count the number of big games that we played in all those years at Winford. A special atmosphere for their players, for our players. Again, I remember arriving on the bus prior to games with lines of fans out to the parking lot when we arrived. However, most of those fans were Ontario fans because for some reason, seemingly, when we walked into the gym, all the Winford fans were already packed on their side. I think they had a back door that they snuck through. But as intense as these games were, I think many fans don't know that prior to each of those games, Rob Sheldon and I would meet each other in the high school shop area. And we would probably talk an hour prior to the game about a lot of stuff. A little bit about the game, but usually something about Rob getting ready for his golf season because he's a tremendous golfer. However, you would never know that because when the ball went up, there was a lot of intensity in that gym, especially by us two coaches. One of the best stories of this gym, though, is not one in a game that we played against each other. One night I went to scout at Winford, and typically I would always go through that back door. However, for some reason the door was locked and there was nobody there when I pounded on the door to let me in, so I walked to the front entrance and kind of feeling guilty. There was a kid there selling 50-50 tickets for one of the Winford clubs. So I said, I'll pay $5 to get a 50-50 ticket. Well, to my surprise, when they read the 50-50 number, it was mine. So I was sitting across from the scorer's table in the very top row, and to go get the 50-50 money, you had to walk across the gym floor to pick it up. So I walked down from the top, walked across the gym floor, and I remember longtime doctor Mike Johnson at Winford, who unfortunately has passed away, but really good guy. He looked at me and just announced, and he goes, and the 50-50 winner is Joe Baylog. And I kind of looked around, and I didn't know whether those people were going to throw stuff at me or boo me or whatever, but one claim to fame, I won 50-50 at Winford. Another great gym that we played in that area is Colonel Crawford's Mac Morrison Gymnasium. Currently still there. Crawford, as you know, built a new school here within the past several years. They had an opportunity to build a new gym, but I guess good for our area that they kept this gym. Again, very similar to Ontario. They have a great fan base of people that have come to games for years. They have a pool right beside the gymnasium, makes it an extremely warm atmosphere for everyone that's there. And then they have a great student section that sits right on that baseline, and that's the direction you have to go in the second half. So you're always shooting free throws into that student section. You always have a battle when you play the Eagles there at home. And then probably I can't go without saying, your goal as a coach is to achieve the ultimate goal of getting to Columbus and playing in the state Final Four and hopefully trying to play for a state championship. We were very fortunate in 1995 that we were able to make that trip. We won a regional in Toledo, beating Coldwater and Delta, and made the state tournament and got a chance to play in St. John Arena. I remember that week preparing for that trip to Columbus. You know, as a coach, you go to the state tournament almost every year. And typically when I was at the state tournament, there would always be one game where a team just didn't play well and another team played really well, and you were like, man, how did that team get there? And so the team that we matched up was with Orrville. And Orrville at that time was a traditional state power in basketball, coached by legendary coach Steve Smith. And I remember as we started preparing and I looked at Orrville and compared them up to us, I was thinking and told my coaching staff, you know, if Orrville plays really well and we play poorly, we're going to be one of those teams that coaches and fans are going to look at. How the heck did Ontario ever get there? Fortunately for us, we played well. I mean, we played extremely well. We played in front of a packed house, which at that time was 13,276 fans. And we lost by 3 in overtime, 68-65. After that game, I remember going into the locker room and the emotion that our players had of crying and just really taking the loss very hard. But I also remember from my standpoint of feeling kind of good about how we played, because I was thinking, we played probably the best that we could play. We represented our school, our basketball program really well. However, shortly later that night, I also remember as we went back to a hotel to stay for the weekend to watch some of the rest of the games, I had a player named Brian Maloney who played fantastic in that game, scored 32 points, was just outstanding. And we got back to the hotel and Brian, he was still sobbing. And I brought him into my room and I said, Brian, I said, you played one of the best games you've ever played in your career. You played one of the best games that anybody's ever played in St. John Arena. I said, you just got to let this go. And I just remember Brian looked at me and he goes, Coach, we are this close. And he turned and he walked out of my room. And I just remember laying in bed that night, and I don't think I got a wink of sleep because I just kept remembering what he said. We were that close, and as the weekend went on, that continued to bear in my mind. So again, having coached for this long, had a great opportunity to coach in many, many other venues also, but these are a few that stuck out in my mind. Welcome to Story Time. During my many years of coaching, we've run a variety of baseline out-of-bounds plays, and I think as I mentioned several times during the last couple weeks of Story Time, I've learned a lot in the game of basketball from a large number of coaches. However, there's one coach that probably had the biggest influence on me concerning special situations and baseline out-of-bounds plays, which is what we're going to talk about today, and that's a good friend of mine, Bob Van Kennel from Dover's. His teams are always so good with special situations, especially baseline out of bounds, that after scrimmaging them for a couple years and continuing to scrimmage them, this became a big emphasis for what we wanted to do in our program. So attending a Villanova clinic one year with my coaching staff, we came across a set that Coach Jay Wright used with his Wildcats. We really liked the set because it was something different from what we did, and then it was also something different than we had seen our opponents. So what I'd like to do is show you that set as to what it was. So different looking set rather than many teams will put 4 along the baseline, they'll get in the box. You can see this is kind of staggered. So as far as looking at players, where we tried to put players, player number 1 could be a different player, but what we basically looked for this guy right here was that he was a great passer, that he could pass the ball to get a guy open is what we used to use the term. Typically, this number 2 guy would be one of your better shooters. 3 would be kind of a forward that's really athletic, and then 4 and 5 would be kind of what we would call our post players. Okay? So that's kind of the personnel. Now, we would change personnel sometimes, but this guy taking the ball out of bounds was the guy that was always the key to us having success on baseline out of bounds plays. So what we came up with this was, we came up with tried to come up with 5 sets that we could run out of this look. So what we wanted to do was show our opponents the same look, but be able to do different things out of the look. Because many times as a coach, when I scouted, if a team was in a box set, I knew this was the set they were going to run. If they were in a 4 cross set, I knew this was what they were going to run. So we wanted to try to show a set, but be able to do different things out of it. So one of the other parts of coaching is calling your plays. So many times if somebody called out a play, my assistants would be telling, hey, coach, this is what they're doing. And we would relay, of course, that to players, and hopefully we scouted it pretty well. So a couple of tricks we tried to come up with to trick opponents that scouted us was this. First of all, we would have a name for plays. So, for example, the 5 plays that we had when I left Ontario and our baseline out of bounds were up, Comet, Wildcat, Spartan, and Illini. So we could call those sets, and our players should know what they would do. Okay? If we were playing somebody that maybe scouted us really well, we would also go to what we would call numbers. So, for example, numbers would be like 1 and 2 would be up. So if I called 1, it was up. If it was 2, it was up. 3 and 4 was Comet. 5 and 6 was Wildcat. 7 and 8 was Spartan. 9 and 0 was Illini. So the thing that we found that helped us also with this was when we went and worked on out-of-bounds plays in practice, I would assign like the blue team to Coach Schnitke, the gold team to Coach Henderson, and what they would do with out-of-bounds plays is they might have a three numbers. So they would be going like, let's say they would go 312. Well, their live number might be the last number, number 2. So then their players would know what they were doing, okay? So it kind of helped us from the standpoint when we worked on out-of-bounds plays in practice was that when they went against each other, they really didn't know what the set was going to be. A third way that we tried to trick coaches was we actually used the scoreboard. So when an out-of-bounds play, of course, is going to be in a dead ball situation, we would simply have our players look up at the clock, and if the last number on the clock was a 4, they knew that they were running Comet. All right, so let me kind of just diagram a couple of these sets for you to kind of see how this worked for us. So up was a play that we that was the first play that we got from Villanova. And up was simply this, is we would put our 2-man right here. And the thing with 2, we told him was be kind of a decoy, a trickster here, because sometimes he could fake a little bit, and we might be able to make this pass right here for him to get a layup. But the initial action on up was that 2 was going to come and screen for 4. So 4 was going to use this screen however he could to try to get open. If he didn't get open, he had to get out. 2 simply stepped up because he was going to be our outlet man. And then what we did is we took 5. We stepped 5 out here hard. All right. And then 3 we would have kind of be a decoy that he would act like the ball's going to be thrown to him, and we tried to dive him right to the basket. All right. So that was the first option that we had out of up. And then let me show you one other action that we had, just so you can see that we did different things out of this same set. So again, we put the players in the same positions that we just had. We have 1 taking it out, 2 underneath the basket, 4 here, 5 is here, and 3 is here. Okay? So an action that we would call Comet would be simply that we're trying to get 2 a shot. So 2 again is going to screen for 4. 4 is diving, looking to get open. And then we had 5 and 3 screen for 2 coming off of a double here. And then, of course, time anybody tried to cheat, for example, if 5-mans tried to cheat, we would have 5 that would slip. Those are 2 of the actions that we had out of baseline, out of bounds plays. The other 3, of course, involved different actions. So it's just kind of one of the things that coaches work on. I've also had coaches that on baseline, out of bounds play will run the same play, but they'll run it out of different sets. Our philosophy was we were going to show you the same set and look to run different actions out of those sets. So maybe hopefully as you go to a game this weekend, you can take a little closer look at how your high school team's running baseline out of bounds plays and kind of see what they do. And hopefully this information helps you. So that's story time with Coach B this week.